Paramedics and the special rescue, urban rescue teams that have been brought in will have success at rescuing even more people, but that is the expectation. Right now I want to check in with Christiane Amanpour for the latest reaction from Britain. And before I get to that, Christiane, I wanted your reaction to part of an interview I did with King Abdullah earlier today, where I asked him a series of questions as to what role he thinks U.S. policy in the Middle East might have played in the U.S.'s vulnerability to the attack. And at one point in the interview, he said if peace had been achieved in July, or an accord had been reached in July of 2000, this might not have happened. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Paula, clearly anti-American feelings in the Middle East have been on the rise since the Intifada, which started in Israel and the territories 11 months ago. This is clear. Moderate Arab countries have warned the United States that this was happening and that it has been happening, and Arab leaders have seen their people take to the streets over the months of the Intifada, demanding that something be done on behalf of the Palestinians. And also, you've had guests on your programs this morning, notably Dennis Ross, the former Middle East peace envoy and chief negotiator, who confirmed that anti-Americanism has been on the rise, and those kinds of sentiments are more pronounced now than they have been perhaps ever. On the other hand, the same people, Dennis Ross and other experts on these matters, say that it is not necessarily about there not being a peace agreement. They point out that in 1993, when the first attack was conducted on the World Trade Center building, that was at the height of the peace process, when it had just started, really, the Oslo process, and the governments of the Middle East, the United States, were all fully engaged, including the Palestinians, in trying to come to a peace agreement. Many people believe that despite the anti-Americanism that is palpable now on the streets of the Middle East, that it is not about having no peace agreement, that the terrorists who planned and meticulously carried out this catastrophe, they believe would have done it peace agreement or no peace agreement, because they are against the peace agreement in any event. They have spoken out clearly against the Oslo process, Paula.
Christiane, if you would come back to you for more British reaction to the massacre that was unleashed yesterday. Right now I want to go to the floor of the Senate, where the junior senator from New York is addressing her colleagues.
Chuck has, and all of our colleagues in the House, by the strong support we've received from the President, and I am very grateful. We've expressed our appreciation. Chuck and I will be going to New York this afternoon with FEMA, and we could not ask for more than we've received in the immediate aftermath of this horrific attack. But we are by no means anywhere near the end of what it will take to continue the search and rescue efforts. We are finding people even as we speak. Yet we know that there is a very grim task ahead, to do everything we can to find every person, to account for every single person who went to work. That's all they did. They went to work on a beautiful September day in New York. We will also stand united behind our President as he and his advisors plan the necessary actions to demonstrate America's resolve and commitment, not only to seek out and exact punishment on the perpetrators, but to make very clear that not only those who harbor terrorists, but those who in any way, any aid or comfort whatsoever, will now face the wrath of our country. And I hope that message has gotten through to everywhere it needs to be heard, that you are either with America in our time of need or you are not. We also stand united behind our resolve, as this resolution so clearly states, to recover and rebuild in the aftermath of these tragic acts. You know, New York was not an accidental choice for these madmen, these terrorists, these instruments of evil. They deliberately chose to strike at a city which is a global city. It is the city of the 21st century. It epitomizes who we are as Americans. And so this, in a very real sense, was an attack on America, on our values, on our power, on who we are as a people. And I know, because I know America, that America will stand behind New York, that America will offer whatever resources, aid, comfort, support that New Yorkers and New York require. Because the greatest rebuke we can offer to those who attack our way of life is to demonstrate clearly we are not cowed in any way whatsoever. I hope that within a short period of time, Senator Warner, we see scaffolding on the sides of the Pentagon. After we finish the search and rescue and recovery work that is being carried out heroically there, I hope we all see a clear signal that we are rebuilding, that our defenses are more resolute than ever. And I hope, similarly, that Lower Manhattan has the same kind of image to project, because the reality will be that we are rebuilding and reconstructing and making clear that just as our military might is unchallenged and uncowed, so is our economic, our social, our political values epitomized by New York.
All right, there you see at the Junior Center from New York, Hillary Clinton pointedly talking about what needs to be done to confront these terrorists that launched these multiple attacks against the U.S. yesterday, making reference to the indomitable spirit of New Yorkers and the collective strength to rebuild. Not making a reference to what President Bush just made an announcement of, which is requesting immediate funding from Congress to deal with the rescue efforts and the cleaning up of the debris. So that is the very latest from here. Darren, I want to go back to you and just make one more quick note about what rescue workers are telling us. Once again, they have every reason to believe that 2 people trapped in the rubble will be rescued, that they will be found alive, and if that is true, that would bring the total to 11 of all of the victims who have been successfully brought out of these horrendous ruins.
And Paula, as those efforts go on in New York City, I'm sure thoughts and prayers from across the country and around the world go into those rescue workers trying to save more lives. Another development in this story, earlier this morning, CNN received word that there were possibly planes in Canadian airspace. And of course, this would go against the shutdown of airspace across the U.S. and Canada. Let's bring our David Ensor in. He's in our Washington, D.C. bureau. David, do you have any more information on these planes? Were they flying? And perhaps did they have permission to do so?
Well, we understand from Canadian sources that the planes are compassion flights, but we have not been able to get confirmation of that from U.S. officials. We should have it soon. The feeling is that these planes are probably no threat to anyone, but that has not been finally nailed down yet, Darren. What is happening in the U.S. intelligence community and over in law enforcement is, of course, a tremendous amount of work. They are being flooded with all sorts of data, intelligence gathered, but also received and unsolicited. Countless emails and faxes are being sent to agencies from the White House to the CIA, claiming credit for the attacks, if credit is the right word, threatening future attacks. Much of this information, officials I've spoken to say, looks pretty wacky, but they are not able to eliminate any of it. Every lead is going to be checked, so there's a great deal of work to do. Now, the information that they have so far still leads U.S. officials to believe that those involved in these attacks will likely be proven eventually to have links to the group led by Osama bin Laden, the fugitive Saudi terrorist who is apparently living in Afghanistan. However, the net has been spread wide. They are not ruling out other possibilities. There are some experts who say that the sophistication and highly coordinated nature of this attack suggests strongly that some kind of state sponsorship might have been involved. Officials, U.S. officials, saying there's no evidence of that so far. However, they're not ruling it out. Some of these outside experts saying that, pointing out that Iraq appears to have had some sort of a role in the Ramzi Youssef matter some years back, and that some involvement by Iraq cannot be ruled out. U.S. officials saying they have no evidence of that, but they are spreading a very wide net indeed. Now, officials are confirming that there were a couple of intercepts, presumably of voices, spoken voices, connected with the bin Laden group after the attacks that occurred yesterday, talking about how successful they were. They're not happy that that information got out, and you can expect at the briefings that the closed-door briefings of the House and Senate that will occur, or that are scheduled to occur later today with the FBI, CIA, and other leaders, briefing members of Congress, that there will be a strong appeal to them to avoid leaks of any kind of information about the investigations. A great deal of concern about that. That is a major concern as they go forward from here. Darren?
David, I imagine that's going to be a tough balancing act. On one hand, to keep up the integrity of the investigation, as you mentioned, you don't want leaks to go out, and yet this country is going to be so hungry for information and will only feel comforted if it knows that an investigation is moving forward.
Well, that's right. The law enforcement and intelligence authorities of the country want it clear they're doing their jobs, that they are making progress, that they are gaining intelligence. At the same time, they don't want to compromise their investigation, which is in early stages when it could easily be compromised. So it's going to be a difficult balancing act, as you say, and I nonetheless expect that we will be learning more as the day progresses as to what they've got so far. Darren?
Very good reason to check back with you at a later date, later hour. Thank you very much. David Ensor in our D.C. Bureau. Leon.
All right, we've got a lot on deck for you this morning. We're continuing to cover every aspect of this story this morning. We have a number of live press conferences that are going to be getting underway any minute now. We're keeping our eye right now on one in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, which is just south of Pittsburgh, which is the site of one of those plane crashes. The FBI is going to be having a briefing there. We're also expecting the FBI to have a briefing at Boston's Logan Airport, so we'll keep an eye on those as well. And we have also learned that Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, the company that occupied some 50 floors of one of those towers at the World Trade Center and have lost so many employees there, they are going to be having a press conference this hour as well. So we're going to have coverage of all three of those conferences for you. And we understand that President Bush is going to be meeting with congressional leaders, and we will have live coverage for you of that as well. So much more is coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll take a break right now. We'll be back with more in just a bit. But in the meantime, we want to give you a look at this in the aftermath of this attack. We've heard so many stories from those who witnessed the devastation in New York and in Washington, and here now is a look at how one man experienced it.
They told me just to wait here at this semi-staging area, see if I can help, and that's what I'm doing. My name's Mark Heath. I'm a cardiac anesthesiologist at Columbia Presbyterian on 168th Street. We saw that 2 planes had flown into the World Trade Center. Thought that they would need all hands on deck. So I hopped into some scrubs and grabbed some medical stuff and just grabbed, an ambulance stops. I hopped in. Maybe leave the keys in the car so they can move it if they have to. Is there a staging area?
They're evacuating this whole area.
Yeah, but they have people who are hurt, right? They're going to pull them out.
Estimate is we probably lost 200 firefighters.
Oh, my God.
And God knows how many thousands of people.
Okay. So you want me to wait right here? Okay.
And stay away from any other high-rise building.
Okay. Let's just station up right here, okay?
All right.
Why don't we set up? We were instructed by a fire chief to start setting up a staging area right there. Then the second building came down. I videoed what I could, got behind a car. I hope I live. I hope I live. It's coming down on me. Here it comes. I'm getting behind the car.